For years, we have heard that 30 to 40,000 people die each year due to gun-related violence. This stat has become the scarlet letter of the US, and for years, we all just accepted this data point as the gospel to the story of America's gun problem. Opportunistic anti-gun politicians, organizations, and even our legacy media have used this data point to present an image that if you come to America, it's only a matter of time before you're shot and killed by a crazed gun-toting lunatic. As a result, this is why we need more common sense gun laws, i.e. gun control. But we have over 20,000 gun control laws in this country on a state and federal level. I think we're past common sense at this point and are well into infringement. Don't get me wrong, if 40,000 people every year were being murdered with guns, that is an issue. The question is, however, how big is the issue? And a better question is it a big enough issue to justify infringing on a constitutional right that protects people's ability to protect themselves? The UK is the shining example of gun control for anti-gunners. The UK has a population size of 60 million people. So let's say 40,000 people were murdered with a gun. That would only be 0.06% of the population. Now let's look at America, where there are over 300 million guns and a population size of 327 million people. 40,000 people out of 327 million are only 0.01% of the population. And that's if all of those shootings were murders, which they are not. If you break down the numbers, according to the type of gun deaths, the number of gun murders in this country becomes dizzyingly small. Of that 40,000, roughly 29,250 are suicides. 1,612 are law enforcement shootings in the line of duty. 274 are negligent discharge deaths. And 8,863 are actual murders by way of criminal activity, drug-related, or mentally ill people. So as far as actual gun murders, it's not 40,000, it's 8,863 out of 327 million people. Yes, suicides matter, but suicides aren't a gun problem. If they were, America with its over 300 million guns would lead the world in suicides, but we're not even in the top 20. Not to mention universal background checks don't stop suicides, assault weapon bans don't stop suicides, because people don't use AR-15s to shoot themselves. So as far as I'm concerned, using suicide numbers to push more gun control is dishonest as hell. As for law enforcement shootings, that's mostly cops killing criminals who were trying to kill them or someone else. And that's not just with guns. Call me crazy, but I have very little remorse for a criminal who dies trying to kill someone else. When it comes to negligent discharges, guns aren't the problem either. People who are uneducated about guns that have guns are the problem. The lack of firearm knowledge in this country compared to the number of guns in this country is atrocious. And that's because we spend more time demonizing the various organizations we have that provide gun safety and education programs than using these organizations to teach the masses about firearm safety. I think it's safe to say, in a country with more guns than people, that we should spend more time trying to educate the population about guns instead of using BS stats to scare people away from them. At worst, education alone will cut the number of negligent discharges in half. At best, it'll reduce it nearly to nothing. Now, as far as the 8,863 actual murders, on average, 25% of all gun murders in America take place in 4 cities: Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, and Washington, D.C. Now ask yourself this question. From a socioeconomic standpoint, what do all of these cities have in common? You guessed it. Each of these cities have well-known areas where the vast majority of their violence is concentrated in poverty-stricken, underdeveloped neighborhoods who have had the same leadership and power for decades that refuse to do anything to address the socioeconomic issues in these places. And no, it's not just a black culture thing. I know a ton of black families who live in the suburbs and their kids aren't doing drive-bys in their BMWs. It's prolonged exposure to poverty that facilitates the violence in these neighborhoods. And even then, it's a small group of people committing the majority of the violence in these neighborhoods. If the leaders of these areas really wanted to stop the violence, instead of ignoring it on non-election years, only to exploit it for votes during election years, they would, and they can. But they gain and maintain more control in treating the symptom than they do providing the cure, so they don't. We could literally cut that 8,863 gun murders down to 6,648 just by putting our energy towards fixing the socioeconomic conditions in the inner city. And if we're feeling really ambitious, how about we also take that energy and focus on the mental health and figure out why we have the mass shootings that we do? Granted, mass shootings account for less than a statistical 0 when it comes to gun deaths. But it would do us some good to address the mental health issue in this country, and guess what else would go down as a result? You guessed it, suicides. Long story short, America does not have a gun violence problem. We have a suicide problem and a socioeconomic problem in our inner cities. Yes, we have gun violence, but compared to the multitude of things that are far more likely to kill us, why are we expending so much energy on destroying the Second Amendment when it's a fact that guns are used to kill less than 1% of the population? Gun control is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist and a weapon for people who want control. I know some of you are thinking, well, if you have such a small chance of being shot and killed, why do you need a gun for protection? That answer is easy. The chance of me using my gun in self-defense may be less than 1%, but if I become that percent, I can lose 100% of everything. Right now, there's a culture war against the Second Amendment, which is why I need your help spreading our message to counter their message. You can do this by leaving a comment, sharing this video, and click the bell and subscribe button. Let my voice be your voice, and let them know you want to keep America tactical, because the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed wasn't a suggestion, it was a directive. Also, if you're wondering where to purchase your state-specific Keep America Tactical shirt, click the link under the Keep America Tactical in the description section of this video.